morning, Stocktwits Nation. It is Tuesday, May 13th. We are here, of course, with Shay Boloor. And we got Jody here as well from Blockfuel. Jody, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Nice little CPI print we just saw. So that gets you out of bed.
It does. And I know it's early where you are, so we appreciate you. Shay, how are you feeling today? Yesterday, obviously, we had the relief of the tariff pause. We had the good CPI data come out today. How are you feeling as we head into today's trading session?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday felt in a way a celebration party. Katie, you're probably going to feel the effects of that in a month when the Knicks win the championship and the parade's going to happen in New York. But it felt like, wow, we made it past the tariff war. But that is a little misleading because it's just a delay for 90 days. But I think that delay is enough to make all the intention back towards fundamentals, business execution, thematics, etc., rather than East versus West yelling match. But yeah, this morning's CPI print soft. That's great. Like, it just compounds onto the really good news we had yesterday. And now on a technical front, like, we have the green light to go risk on because we're above the 200-day moving average, and we held all day yesterday. We actually closed at the high of the day yesterday. Like, that's ultra bullish. Like, on yesterday's show, I was like, all right, the open is emotion, the close is the truth. Well, we closed at the high of the day, and that's the truth. So I think we're going to be trending up to the right.
Yeah, and of course the S&P yesterday ended over 3% up, the Nasdaq up over 4%, Dow Jones up 2.81%. So a strong showing to start the week, and we had that CPI data come in too. We've also had some earnings roll in. There's a lot of news to cover. I want to start on the crypto front, though, because we have Jody here, and I know this week is sort of a crypto special on the show with the launch of Crypto-Twits. I hope you guys are checking that out for real-time conversations about what's going on in the crypto world. I actually, in anticipation for this week, I texted one of my friends who's pretty deep in this space, and I was like, what are the big things people are talking about right now in crypto? Because as Jody, Shay, and I, we tend to focus on stocks, but we do come into your world a bit. Curious, as you're looking at things in the context of the broader macro environment, what are the big headlines? Is it the Ethereum comeback? Do we call it that? What are the big things that are sort of on your mind as you look at the landscape overall?
Yeah, great question. And this is an industry that's not driven by earnings because so many have not actually reported, actual user metrics or revenues. So you really need to look at macro trends. Certainly, Bitcoin price has been driven by liquidity. Many of the cycles have always been driven by liquidity. So people have really been talking about the M2 money supply, what's happening with overall global supply of just dollars and liquidity coming into the system. People called it a joke last week of like, hey, M2 money supply can't just be overlaying on a chart with the Bitcoin price. But then Bitcoin, really followed that last Thursday and Friday, surging, above 100,000, touching, I think, 105. And then a little bit of a pullback. So that's one big theme is just looking at M2 money supply. A good CPI print this morning supports that case that, hey, there is more liquidity that can come in the system. Jerome Powell does have the green light to probably cut, if prices are coming down. So that's a really big factor. Another big piece, that we want to cover more is certainly these Bitcoin Treasury companies. We just came back from Strategy World, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But looking at all these companies that are buying Bitcoin on their balance sheet and how they're capitalizing it, how they're using leverage, and what are the products that you can go in and look at that are, leverage Bitcoin equities. And does it make sense to invest in those? And are those going to compete with, really MicroStrategy or Michael Saylor that owns 2% of the Bitcoin supply?
Yeah, let's stay there for a minute because Shay and I've talked about this before of the GameStop MicroStrategy. There's a company called Cooler, which we interviewed for the show. They have exoskeletons. How should investors think about companies that are doing this? Obviously, you're in this space pretty deep, but I guess what types of companies are in the best position to do this, or is this a universal trend that you think is going to continue with these more forward-thinking companies adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet?
Yeah, a few things. You're looking at, we just came back from, right, Bitcoin for Corporations, which is, now strategy devotes a lot of time and effort and brings in speakers to teach other companies about Bitcoin, running the Sailor playbook. So a lot of it comes down to execution. So how are they, how are they raising capital? Are they issuing debt? Are they diluting their shares? It's been something where Michael Saylor's had this vision. He's talking about, these, different debt and equity products. People have complained on Twitter, hey, Saylor, you're really diluting with all these like new equity issuances of strategy stock. But he has a goal to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. If you look at a smaller company, they don't always, I'd say, approach it in the same way and like have the execution, level that he has, or that have the management team around it. So when you look at, Michael Moe from Cooler spoke there, I thought he had, very clear. It's great that he's out, proselytizing. Hey, this is exactly what we're doing. We're doing the Sailor playbook. Similar Scientific's another name. Meta Planet's also another front runner. I think as you get beyond that, you really want to dive into, can they execute? Are they just diluting, stock fully? Do you know the mechanics of how the company's structured to see what the dilution is? And is the Bitcoin accretive? Meaning, as they add Bitcoin to the balance sheet, is the, Bitcoin yield or the amount of Bitcoin per share actually valuable? And like, is that number increasing? So some of the metrics we're putting out more data on, we're putting more education on Bitcoin yield and Bitcoin price per share. But those are the things you really need to look at, because it's going to be hard to compete, I think, with strategy. It's also going to be hard to like execute at a level of these like ATM issuances or equity dilution in the same way that strategy is done.
Yeah, and let's now bring in your partner in crime over here, Avi. I believe Avi is dialing into the show also from Blockfuel. Avi, welcome. Good to see you. And now we got the full squad.
You guys just threw me on, and I thought I was getting a quick little intro here, but I missed the last little few seconds here. So Jody, if you want to like,
I'm showing all the leverage backed Bitcoin equities. So
yeah,
we're talking
just jump right in there, Avi.
Yeah, no, well, Avi, I'll give you a voiceover. It's the financial Hail Mary that all the shit goes do. Just say that.
Shay, I was gonna go to you because I know you have a different perspective there, and like, I'm curious. Like, you talk about being a TradFi guy. Do you look at this as an evaluation criteria when you're looking at new companies? Like, how does this factor in for you, or do you think it's like a red flag?
Oh, I think it's if you don't have a business product, ecosystem moats, like you have to pull some kind of lever, and this narrative is a lever that's kind of low hanging fruit for a lot of companies to pull. Like, I don't know, there's multiple companies who start as a software like Sailors did, or even Similar Scientific, which was not a crypto company like a couple of years ago. They do become this is because they failed at something first, and they have to pivot, and they have so much cash on their balance sheet that this is the next evolution of like, we're not going to file Chapter 11, we're not going to file bankruptcy. Like, we're going to pivot towards this new thematic or this new like vehicle of being a sailor apprentice. Let's just say that. And I think it's as I always call it, it's new financial Hail Mary, where if you don't execute, you can always have this as your plan B. And I'm super bullish on Bitcoin. My biggest issue is I think this potentially causes some kind of big black swan event. God forbid if crypto hits 40K, for example. Like, Bitcoin hits 40K. I don't know if it'll ever break 50. But if nobody knows the black swan event. Nobody can predict GFC. Nobody can predict Trump versus China, what happened this year. Like, nobody can predict black swan events. So like, if you prepare for the worst, like, this might break the system if so more people exploit Bitcoin the way these companies are doing it recently. But that's a very pessimistic way of thinking about it. I know I'm probably in the minority on that. TradFi guy. I'm the old geriatric geezer talking about, oh, back in the good old days, we used to just have cash.
Yeah.
So
I
Avi,
would agree and disagree. So coming off of MicroStrategy, everyone knew, just moved to Strategy World down in Orlando. Jody and I just got back from, and from us, we came from all these crypto conferences where, you know, some people are wearing costumes, some people are in suits, you know, and slowly but surely we saw more and more suits like enter the room. And of course that's kind of like a microcosm, but I'm not joking. There'd be events you'd go to and people like early days, NFT days and things like that, people wearing costumes. The narrative has shifted, I'd say, especially at that conference, right? A lot of the folks were from TradFi, oil and gas. We talked to a doctor that was a radiologist and who's like, I treat 20,000 patients a year. And he's like, my gift to the world is going to actually end up being educating people on Bitcoin. And like, so people have the orange bug, I'd say. But beyond that, I would agree to some points, Shay, you said. So I think like, and I was talking about this with Jody. What I think is interesting is like these early companies that get in not only get the benefit of the price being lower as today, and Shay, to your point, yes, it could go lower, but it with the ETFs, with a new administration, with other countries coming in buying this up, the corporate strategy is like one leg of this, and strategy is obviously in the lead. And so we were talking about this pre-show, how cool it is that a company is like sharing their trade secrets openly and encouraging other people to copy them, right? Because they only benefit if more and more companies buy. They have such a lead right now. It's not like a zero-sum game. That being said, what I would potentially agree with you on is I think, as with anything, it's at the 100th, 150th company that does this, that excitement, you know, that initial burst that we're seeing for some of these companies right now is probably going to not happen as much. But we're going to, you know, all it takes is a Meta, you know, one of these big companies to finally pull the trigger. And I think it's inevitable. I think some of the other smaller companies will go first, of course. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you just also described a multi-level marketing scheme a bit, where he's like, oh, if more people participate in this, we all rise, high tide resolve boats type of thing. That's my biggest issue. Like, Econ 101 brain of mine was like, this is such an MLM, like that's legal, but it's in the gray area of it, of like.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, and I've joked, you know, to Jody about this too. It's and technically, you know, it's the same as money. It's like anything with belief. If you have belief behind it. And now, the Bitcoin story, we don't need to get like full off the rails here for the Bitcoin story, but come to Blockfuel and we'll talk about this. But we're seeing this like Bitcoin economy, right? Like you see the Fed just printing money left and right. And the reality, to summarize, is like that can't go on forever. And so Bitcoin has 21 million coins ever. And so the concept of that people are picking up on. And if enough people believe in it, it becomes the new, you know, monetary system. If you listen to Saylor talk, though, I think he's high in the sky. Sometimes he'll say like 13 million a coin, right? And he has to, and he's a salesman for Bitcoin ultimately, right? But I think what you're seeing is like other companies are starting to come on, and the smartest people in the room, you talk to some of these guys, and it starts to click for you. Jody's a little bit smarter than I am. Jody.
Let's
Okay.
Oh, okay, we're back. I want to ask Jody. I want to turn to you for a second because we had the news yesterday on Coinbase, which is sort of this intersection of TradFi and crypto. And I love the point Avi just made, the costumes to the suits. I think that is such a good metaphor because I even remember conferences, like one of the first Bitcoin conferences in Miami. The pictures I was seeing from that, I was like, this is a joke. And now it's, you know, suits. But Coinbase entering the S&P 500, the first crypto company to do so. What does that signal for your community and Bitcoin overall? And thoughts on investments in crypto if you're somebody who's into the space. Is Coinbase on Coinbase, is Coinbase an interesting investment opportunity, or if you're deep in crypto, are you just fully in Bitcoin and other assets?
I think I will go ahead and preface saying I did buy the Coinbase IPO and it just went down from there. I think it hit 400 that day, and it was not a good decision. It was euphoria, but Coinbase leads the way. I think they've operated very well. Brian Armstrong's navigated the ship as well as any good CEO, I think, and you know, they won that case with the SEC this year. So I think that was a big step forward for them. This is another big step forward. The stock price hasn't really popped, I think, in the last 3 to 4 months. Things have been priced in. People already knew that the big ETF issuers, 10 of 13 to 17, all used Coinbase, might be 11 or 12 now. So they're really entrenched. They have the institutional backing. They have this track record of reporting and having like real earnings from buyers coming in. And as people see the market shift back into a market cycle where there's going to be big trading revenues, people expect them to do well. But these are all things I feel like that have been priced in with Coinbase. And so the stock hasn't been as interesting, as something like a strategy, or hasn't really taken the forefront, like, any of like, investing directly into tokens. But I think people are going to like really look back at this and say, hey, like, if you're not ready for something that is leveraged, or some of the unknowns, or as Shay mentioned, hey, here's some risks around like, strategy owning Bitcoin, and like what happens in, Bitcoin goes to 40K, what happens to that stock? Is there going to be, panic selling on that? I think Coin is a safer option. And I think they already have these institutional relationships with BlackRock, VanEck, Grayscale, all these, big ETF issuers, where it does make sense for them to, continue to do well, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I want to continue on that real quick. We're going to take a quick break for a sponsor and say thank you to Grayscale. Grayscale is the world's largest crypto native asset manager, over a decade of experience helping investors get into crypto investing. If you're thinking about crypto, you might want to consider starting investing with Grayscale. Look at their investment products directly in your brokerage account, and you can visit Grayscale for more information. And I believe we have a quick video, and then I want to get back into the Coinbase conversation.
Looking to add a Bitcoin fund to your portfolio? Do it with the Bitcoin Mini Fund from Grayscale, the lowest cost way to get exposure to Bitcoin in your investment account. Just search for fund ticker BTC wherever you invest. The Bitcoin Mini from Grayscale. Think crypto. Invest Grayscale.
Okay. That throws me off at the end. The chime just keeps going. Avi, welcome back. And Shay as well. Shay and I have been talking a lot about Robinhood. And Shay, we haven't talked a lot about Coinbase, specifically you and I. And I think I spotted something, I think it was Brian Armstrong or someone at Coinbase, sort of poking at fintechs that are not crypto native, adding crypto, and they're sort of like fair weather crypto players. And there was some conversation that maybe he was talking about SoFi, TBD. But Shay, Coinbase, is that interesting to you at all? And we've never actually talked about this one.
Nada. I mean, it's a high beta play on crypto, but I think you have to think about the way it's trending toward. That's eventually going to be a lever that has to be removed for Coinbase's business model. I think that the NFT marketplace was a really interesting avenue that completely is a dud. NFTs now, great, love to see that, because I don't think there's a place in the world that should exist. However, like they're the best pure bet on crypto if you want exposure in that. However, that comes with a lot of risk on the ups and downs of the crypto space. Like, it's not going to be just linear up to the right, and they have predictability of the revenue is going to be a 20% CAGR for the next 5 years, for example. Like, there's going to be no predictability about that, because that's the same risk as the semiconductor space has, where it goes through cycles. And for me, like, Robinhood has clearly proved that they're involved into something much bigger than just a crypto trading, or that they're turning into a full-on financial ecosystem with like they have a media angle now associated with them. Like, they're weaponizing degeneracy, they're weaponizing volatility in the equity market, crypto market. Like, they're doing all these different things that they're not so exposed into one specific theme. Coinbase, pure high beta play on crypto. When crypto is a no bueno bear market, Coinbase will be dead for years. Or not dead, like zero, but like it won't go anywhere. That's the risk associated with Coinbase. And I'm like, why not follow the same playbook as what Vlad's doing? Yeah, sure, you can still do some kind of be the crypto 75% of its crypto, but deleverage yourself away from the specific theme because this is a risk associated with it. But it's very, I don't know. I'm sure there's some angles where they're gonna do something different in the future, but as of right now, like I have zero interest in investing in Coinbase when I can do Robinhood, get the same crypto. Gonna make bank on that crypto spread on Robinhood, but I also have deleveraged myself a bit with different themes that they have exposure in their ecosystem.
Avi, what do you think about all this?
I also think it's ridiculous. I also think it's ridiculous that Robinhood did not go in the S&P 500 and Coinbase did first. I thought Robinhood for sure would be. I'm shocked, and I think Armstrong did something sketchy. That's just my
Oh,
That is hot. I think I do agree with Shay, somewhat. I think Coinbase, similar to like Uber and Lyft in a way, like Uber had to deal with all of the regulatory, like Coinbase was for a while the fallback for like the entire industry. Like they were going, Brian Armstrong basically had a house, in DC for a while because he had to be there so often. I think a lot of that, the narrative has shifted again. We just had Grayscale. We actually interviewed John Hoffman over from Grayscale. Awesome guy. And he brought up a really good point. So we're about to witness the biggest like transformation of wealth like ever, basically, right? As the baby boomers come off, all the like trillions, I think it was like $10 trillion, Jody, that is going to be transferring, right? And I saw some stat that like 65% of Gen Z own digital assets. So this change is coming, right? And we don't see it often for like a decade, but they don't really trust the banks. We just talked to like some 22-year-old, shout out to the True North guys, but he was talking through this about his whole generation, like doesn't trust the banks. They're going to be digital assets first. And I think what we're seeing, like Coinbase is a pure play into crypto, but all these ETFs, right? They make money either direction, right? So they're happy to put an ETF up for anything that has liquidity that's going to be moving either direction. But what they're seeing is there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth, and that money, I'm not saying all of it's going to go to crypto, but if 65% of them own this, it's inevitable that a lot of that money is going to start flowing more into digital assets too. And I think a lot of it is education too. I think once people start to click and they understand Bitcoin, it does make a lot of sense. I know when I first did it, like my dad said, it's Beanie Babies, he still does. And it went from 2,400 when I bought it to, 100,000. So, guess who's laughing now, Dad?
yeah, take that, Dad.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
can
Dad.
I say one thing as well? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first off, ETFs, huge move to validate Bitcoin. Absolutely love to see it. And I do think that there's a high floor now. This is not the death nail in the coffin for Coinbase though. Like, why invest in Coinbase now when you have so many different vehicles to capture that pure crypto bet that doesn't rely on gross margins, doesn't rely on net income margins, margin expansion opportunities, etc. Like, I feel like right now I'm looking at their fundamentals. Like, analysts are expecting negative growth for Coinbase in the next 4 years. They have a negative CAGR in 4 years, and that's assuming with 85% gross margins. I think the democratization of fees is a reality that's going to be in the near term, not just like down the line. So like in a way, these net income margins, was it 25%? That's peak. It's going to go lower, and there's negative top line growth. So like, why when you have even more of a high beta vehicle like the MicroStrategy route, even I disagree with, but it's a high beta route for Bitcoin, and then you have all these ETFs that are just gaining momentum. Like, I feel like Coinbase is becoming more of a commodity play, and even then, it doesn't make sense on getting in at peak fundamentals where it's just going to deteriorate over time.
Yeah, almost. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add real quick. I did see, Katie, your interview with Vlad. I think there's more similarities to Hood and Coinbase than people expect. I think the number one thing, stable coins. So you have Robinhood expanding into a lot of these areas and building his financial system, and I would say even more core. Like, I know more people that rely on Coinbase like for their business and livelihood more than they would rely on Robinhood. So like, we receive stable coins from somebody in another country. It takes 20 seconds. And then one click, it sends to your bank. So I think that facilitating commerce and like being especially in stable coins itself, especially if we pass, maybe not the Genius Act, maybe it's another version of it, like last Friday or last Thursday got rejected. But I think a stable coin bill will be first. And Coinbase is becoming really the hub of like, hey, really easy on and off ramping into stable coins. So I think like a Visa, like any kind of good payment network, I think they'll find a way to monetize that really well.
I think you bring up a good point, and this was sort of between the lines of the earnings call, and even in the interview, he talked about Vlad talked about their B2B aspirations, and Coinbase historically they really went hard in the paint on getting the institutions and having their institutional product. So you're saying Robinhood is probably going to do more of that to go in the direction of Coinbase on the consumer side. Do you see that as something they're focused on moving forward?
I think becoming a quasi like bank for the Gen Z, the new generation, right? I think there's something in the U.S. about having Coinbase be a public company that if you're a company that needs to get paid or need to pay a freelancer, it's way easier just going into Coinbase, sending like $1,000 via stablecoin, and it takes 20 seconds, and you get proof, hey, on chain, you paid this person. And I think that experience is something that Coinbase is doing a really good job of trying to abstract all the blockchain stuff away, all the crypto stuff that nobody wants to deal with. And if you can tie that into QuickBooks, into an accounting system, I think it's super powerful to where they're going to get some B2B payment flows, some of the Fiverr flows. Like there's definitely a monetary element there, but I think Shy, these are all kind of like the hood visions, or the Robinhood visions that you want to see play out. You want to see the adoption there, but I do think those two stocks to me might converge to be more similar than different.
And what do you guys make of the Facebook headline about reverting to their stablecoin aspirations potentially? I had kind of shelved that for a bit. Avi, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't. I could make something up. I haven't checked that. Though, to be honest, I did want to make a comment though, coming back to like the Lyft analogy. Like Coinbase is first, right? They were first to market. They're a brand that people recognize. People do have some loyalty in the space, right? In terms of like, I've just always had a Coinbase account. The UX, Robinhood's is great too. But I haven't really switched to Robinhood personally. Right? I don't think people necessarily are switching often. That being said, to have full transparency, like Kraken's about to IPO, I think within the next year. You never know how long these things take, but Kraken, eToro, there are a lot other companies that are coming into play. And so as the space gets bigger, I think the TAM's going to get bigger overall of more people coming in. But at the same time, there's also going to be other competitors and going back to the Treasury, Bitcoin Treasury companies, that is going to be attractive to a lot of people. And people only have so much money in their bank account to spend, and liquidity to spend. And so they have to pick the correct horse there. So,
yeah, it does feel like Coinbase's differentiating factor is we are more crypto than all of you. And over time, as more people adopt and add features, I wonder how that sustains. Jody, were you going to jump in with something? I didn't mean to cut you off, or Avi.
No. I'm
okay.
I'm all coined out.
All right.
I didn't see the news on Meta. I apologize. I would like to talk about that, but
this is it's fine. I do this to Shy all the time, where I'm like, "Hey, did you see this random thing?" And he's like, "What are you doing? But Shy is usually he's got something.
I was going to say to your point on this for Meta was I thought it's super interesting because the Libra project, is the one from a few years ago that they weren't able to do. And then basically the engineers went off and started Sui and Aptos, both based on movement language. So object-based programming. So super awesome tech that, Sui's I've been, using it for a year, just exploring it, dabbling around. So it's great tech, but all those teams dispersed. So it's interesting to see them pull it back in. I think it's bullish for the space, and then maybe ties into some of those themes of stable coins where they can pull it in.
All right, there we have the opening bell. Good transition back into Shy's world, the old school world, the waste management holder world. Dow futures down a little bit, negative 0.37%. S&P up slightly. A little changed, but we're sort of at the opening bell, taking it all in from yesterday, seeing what happens next. Let's turn to some headlines. Over in the stock market, we had obviously the trade truce yesterday that was announced, and that's on pause. Details coming out around that, but there's also some big news in the energy space. So energy, which is fun to say, and the ticker is NRG, announced a $12 billion acquisition of 18 natural gas facilities from LS Power. So that's boosting their capacity quite significantly, and it's a good indicator on data center energy demand. Stocktwits, very bullish, the community on that. Shay, I wanna ask you, this jump, they're up over 25% on this power plant buy. With AI data centers so hungry for power, do you think energy is an underappreciated play in the AI boom? Because we haven't really focused on the energy side too much.
Yeah, so first off, like, I think the reason we haven't focused too much on it isn't because, like, for myself, I'm not discounting the necessity to find alternative energy of the future digital economy we're about to enter. Like, we're not equipped to handle everything that we need to, especially with AI picking up steam. It's just, for me, I don't feel the urgency to get in because there's so many different angles on capitalizing on AI, where energy, I might be the geezer in this group because we're talking crypto and TradFi, but like, for investing in AI, like, I think that's grandpa's favorite angle on investing in AI is like the VRTs, the NRGs, CEGs, like those companies, like, they're gonna become vital in the next 10 years. And right now, the baton's being transferred from stage one of AI towards the application, which is stage two. Applications where you really make a ton of alpha. You saw it already with Palantir. Palantir is the stage 2 AI winner. They're the first one. They're not going to be the only one. But you're seeing that 10x. I don't think these energy companies are going to 10x in the next couple of years. They're going to be steady compounders. And they're going to be printing cash next 5 to 7 years. But in the next 2 years, there's going to be some 5xers among the stage 2 AI winners. And I want more exposure in that space. And then once I see the application winners come to light and they start getting re-rated accordingly, I think the stage 3 for me is going to be towards the energy players, because in 3 years, like, maybe it's up 30 to 40% higher than it is now, maybe even 50%. That's fine. I made a lot more alpha in the other names, and I could always use that capital, trim whatever, to go into these energy names. But don't confuse my lack of urgency with the reality that energy consumption is going to diminish with a couple years. Like, it's going to be so vital, and there's an unlimited there's a blank check right now towards AI in data centers, and that's not going to end anytime soon. And at a certain point, there's going to be a massive energy constraint issue, not just like you're hearing the hyperscalers talk on the conference call, like, oh, we're compute and energy constrained. Like, they're making it sound like very casual. Like, right now, consumers like, oh man, I shouldn't order Uber Eats. Like, I should probably cook in. Like, they're like, it's like a nice option to have. Like, eventually it's gonna be like, we are broke. We're doing hard money loan sharks to get the capital to do Uber Eats. Like, we have to cook in. Like, eventually we're gonna hit that stage. We're just not there yet, but I think that it's a great avenue to get into. It's the highest floor, lowest ceiling of AI, and if you want some AI exposure, that is an interesting slow compounder that won't burn you, for example.
Well, Jody, Avi, what's the energy angle from the crypto side? I think I recall there's some crypto energy or data companies that were starting as crypto data centers, and then they became AI data centers, and now they're kind of back. Do you closely follow that in your day to day, like the adjacencies over in the stock market that play into the momentum you're seeing in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, high level. I know Marathon Digital. We're going to try to bring them on our show. But I know that they are starting to move that direction, right? And so they had all this, eventually, again, going back, there's 21 million coins. they're going to have to pivot, right, eventually. And so you've started to see some of this now. And they already have these relationships set up. Marathon Digital, I don't want to talk too in depth just because we're going to bring them on the show and they'll touch on this. But it is happening for sure. And it was interesting. I was thinking of this, Shy, too, if we're going to hit this, 10 years down the road. They spend all this money on all these data centers, and then there's going to be some technology that makes them a lot more efficient, right? And so do you think we're going to end up with these like ghost towns of data centers like in China where they thought the population was going to grow so much and now there's all these empty buildings? I wonder if that will happen, 10 years down the line or even sooner.
Oh, interesting. Like out west, because they are the size of shopping malls. So we might be back to where we started with the abandoned shopping
You're right.
centers.
People are going to live in those eventually.
I think there's another point to be made of, this is kind of like hey, this is a small thing, to help Carrot, to help blockchain, feel better about itself. But I think with all like the Bitcoin miners and like the companies like Marathon or Core Scientific, like Cipher Mining out of Canada, I think they've built the infrastructure that can then now be used for AI. I think, Shay, you're absolutely right. We do not have the energy capacity ready. America needs to reindustrialize, not with everything. We don't need to all make shoes, but we need to find ways to actually be able to support, the AI, huge demand that's going to come. And so a lot of these Bitcoin miners that have already built out these huge farms of GPUs, a lot of those can be repurposed for AI, and they already have, the warehouses built, but we need to go in, we need to use like nuclear, even like small nuclear sites, at each of these things, done the right way. To be able to power the future and make America competitive, really.
Yeah, that's a good segue into a headline I spotted this morning on SoftBank. So SoftBank's Vision Fund posting an annual loss, and their investment gains fell 40%, but they did notch their first profit in 4 years, thanks to some of their holdings, Alibaba, T-Mobile, to name a few. But they are doubling down. They're saying they're pushing aggressively into AI infrastructure. So they announced a $30 billion investment in OpenAI and plans to acquire Ampere Computing for $6.5 billion. They also have the Stargate data center project, which launched with the president's backing, and that now has 100 proposals. So you see SoftBank, they've been a little quiet lately. They've been keeping a low pro. But another big name, obviously, on the investment world that is also playing in that space. I want to turn quickly to maybe a more like a lighter, I guess a lighter topic within crypto. But I spotted it's starting to come out who's going to this meme coin dinner at the White House. So I want to do a little guess who's coming to dinner and get y'all's thoughts. So the top 220 holders of Trump's meme coin. They got invitations for the private dinner. It's a White House tour. There's a lot of foreign wallets. So 19 of the top 25 crypto wallets are foreign owned. You have Justin Sun based in Hong Kong. He owns $18.6 million Trump coin. And he bought $4.5 million after the dinner announcement. He really wants to go to that dinner. You also have Singapore's Meme Corp. They have the second highest position, investing $18 million. And some other high-profile people are like Kane Warwick out of Australia. You guys are going back to the costumes to suits. You're serious crypto people.
Mm-hmm.
You're serious people. So what is this dinner? Does this dinner hurt the cause? And how do you think about it? Is this just noise, or is someone who's really looking at this from a serious lens? Do you think this is setting things back a bit for the crypto community?
I'll jump in first, I guess. Overall, I'd say I don't love that, and the same thing happened. The Malay news kind of went away down in Argentina as well. But I think meme coins in general, and you'll talk to someone else in the space, and they'll love them. They're fun. I do think that there is something interesting in there as a way to raise money, or like there's a few projects out there that have actually said, "Hey, we just raised $100 million. Let's go build a real company out of that." So there's and it sounds funny to say out loud, but there's an NFT called like Dead Fellas, for example. Now they're making a real project. The founder is making a real project. And so that's interesting. I think there's learnings to be had, in the VC community. A lot of these coins are backed by VCs. I don't love it just because if you think the stock market's manipulated, come on over to meme town and you'll see things just rug pull, and it's happened to all of us. And so, in general, I don't love it. Now, when it comes to politics, I probably and I love this administration, how friendly they've been towards the space, but my personal opinion is it kind of gets a little tricky there, especially with foreign investments. And I don't think the foreign investments came as necessarily huge Trump fans. We want to get in the White House, but part of it was like he's friendlier to the crypto community. They probably had a ton of money from Bitcoin early on. They said, "What's 12 million to throw into this meme coin to help essentially, propel that a little further?" Jody, I don't know if you have a different take overall, but.
Yeah, I listened to Shy. You were talking with Ben. I think it was a show like a week and a half ago. And you guys were going in on it. Like this is, just a grift. And I think there's some really good things that they've done to support the industry, like no doubt. But there's also a lot of things where it's like from like, the hoodies to suits. Now it's like back to like this more like jail costume where crime is legal. And so it's interesting to see people in the space say like, okay, this year 2025 crime is back on and it's legal, coming from an industry that already has a lot of scams. So I think one example, Token 2049 that was in Dubai recently, there was the Emirati backed investment firm MGX was like, hey, we're going to do a $2 billion transaction in the Trump family stablecoin. That turns into, when you do stablecoins, they buy treasuries. And so the firm grows. Tether makes more money than Goldman Sachs. And so the USD1 Trump family stablecoin would then make $80 million in annualized revenue. Why they chose a tiny Trump family stablecoin is politically tied. And so I think that doesn't sit well. I think the Genius Act, and the stablecoin bill got pushback from the Democrats last week. And you're concerned that it becomes a one side of the aisle, issue, when the industry would rather it be more libertarian. It's a traditionally very libertarian industry of not wanting to attach themselves to Republicans or any particular party. So I think, Katie, it's absolutely a concern. I think people should be very, the Trump meme coin example is perfect. Oh, because you're the president, you can suddenly print, billions of dollars immediately because you have that seat of power. But we're hoping that some of these things fade away, especially if we get into midterms and it becomes a bigger issue for the elections.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point in that on the surface, you would think pro crypto people are like, sure, yeah, do the coin. That's great for everybody. But you are giving us the counter side that's really looking for a reason to push back, like the perfect setup to just say no to something that is more broader and less politicized than the stable coin. So it's almost interesting to see. It seems on the surface very like good for crypto, pro crypto, but it could have a blowback. Shy, I'm curious, you're making some faces over there. What are your thoughts?
Shai's 50% of his net worth is in the Trump coin.
Shy is going to the dinner. He's been quiet.
I just seeing like global leaders just like looking at what just happened with the Melania coin, Trump coin, like, you guys thought we were bad? Look at this. This president's shilling the whole nation. No, it's just, why did he have to do that? I know it wasn't him. It was probably baby boy Trump,
Eric,
who told him like, Eric, you can call him, that's too formal for me. He just like probably just brute forced it across the finish line. He's like, I just need your sign off. And then Trump, according to Pete Davidson, he doesn't know how to read, so maybe he just didn't read. But no, I'm kidding. I think that it was just like a really bad narrative, and it was a really bad sentiment. It wasn't, the risk and reward wasn't there for the whole space, and that was a near-term top on a lot of crypto, like when that happened, and that caused, and it also not confused, but the narrative wasn't just crypto; it was patriotic, and a lot of people went hard on those coins because they're very pro-America. It's great. It was actually really great to see the patriotism associated with investing, like love. But it resulted in a lot of those people being down 80%, 90%, and I don't know if it's ever going to recover. I don't. It also highlights the psychology behind these altcoins. Like, it's the purest form of market psychology at all. Any investment out there, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not buying Palantir. It's altcoins. it's the purest form of psychology. When those are doing well, it says a lot about the business environment. When things aren't going well, it's penalized severely. So like, I don't love to see POTUS pushing a altcoin and then doing a tweet months later like, oh, you should buy this type of thing, and that's it. It's just like, all right, what now? And that dinner, I think top 20, I think it was 22. Maybe he revised it because he didn't like two of the people on the
Someone needed
list.
to get in there. Yeah, he's like, this is lame. We need to get these two
something.
guys.
But I don't love that's where his focus is, especially when there's a tariff war. Like, why do this? Like, what's the point of this stuff?
Avi, you look like you.
I would just add
something to
too. We talked. Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was Rob Haddock or CMT Digital. We were having this conversation around meme coins, but going back to the psychology though, it's a lot of these younger folks that look up and see these $1 million homes that are, a small home now, where it's you dream, our generation or even above us, $1 million home was beautiful, and so they were talking about the psychology of like the male who's in college who looks out at their future and they're like, okay, like $100,000 is not going to get me too far in life anymore. So it's like this final push, that Hail Mary pass. I think you were talking about, Shy, or meme coins in general. I'm not talking necessarily with the Trump token, but people feel like they need to hit a home run, and same thing, I think, with the rise of options trading. It's like, hey, I got to hit this home run. Otherwise I'm going to be average forever. Right. And so it is the biggest psychological thought. And we saw this, Shy, with small caps on a much different scale, but now meme coins, they may have $50,000 of liquidity in there. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, I think, overall.
I've never heard it articulated that way. And it makes sense. If you feel so behind and you feel like 100K is like nothing, screw it. Like, yeah, why not? Swing for the fences. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Avi, I want to go back to something you brought up earlier because I'm still thinking about it. I'm curious. The Dead Fellas thing. Some of these coins raising capital. Like, what is Dead Fellas doing with that money? Are they building solely in the crypto space? Are they taking that money and building other things? Do you have any insight there?
High level.
Okay.
I saw they were building I think it's a layer 2.
Okay.
But they're actually building a protocol. But what I found was fascinating there was a new way to raise. It's kind of like we saw the SPAC, Shy, as a different way to kind of become public. This is not necessarily public, but it acts as like a public equity, right? You can, in the sense of you can buy it, it can go up or down, right? And so I think with NFTs and seeing some of these companies, it's cool versus seeing these guys like trick out in Miami and go spend $100,000 at a table, where they're using this money to actually go ahead and build something that could produce, and hire additional people and grow the industry, right? And so I've never been a meme coin guy. I've dabbled, of course, just for fun, but the concept of it, I come from more of a stock background myself. And so I'm more interested in the Bitcoin economy, right? With MicroStrategy and all of these products that Wall Street has seen Bitcoin as this new form of collateral, where it's going to not replace real estate, but another form of collateral, right? And so I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah, I'm at a conference. I met someone yesterday who mentioned that they still had their Bored Ape, and I'm like, I've been dying to talk to somebody. You guys probably do all the time, but I'm like, I've been dying to talk to someone. You're holding it. What are you thinking? And he was like, literally, it's worth nothing, but maybe in 100 years, my great grandkid will like open a vault and find this like USB and be like ridiculously wealthy because there's a limited. Do you guys know anyone who's still holding, and like what are you hearing from them? Because I just keep thinking about that. I'm like, it's just sitting there. You think about it all the time, or you're just like move on with your life.
I mean, I think the biggest risk people have repeated is bag bias, like holding on to things and you're invested and you think it's going to come back. I think beyond memes and just NFTs, I think you have some of these companies that raised a lot of money. I think Ripple is very, top 10 crypto token. And early on, the narrative was like, hey, they're going to replace the banking system. Every bank's going to use them to do back-end transfers. But like now we know it's like JP Morgan will do their own token. There's big stable coins that they feel are more like, third party or more objective than like using Ripple. So I don't think that use case just seems feasible from like even someone that's in the space. I just don't think that banks are going to adopt it. But they have a lot of capital. Like Ripple has like just unreasonable amount of money that they've raised. I'm not one of them that's done that, but I think Jason Yanowitz from Blockworks actually had a good interview where he was talking about they're using that capital to become a business, to will themselves into it. So they bought Hidden Road, which is a prime broker, for 1.2 billion, I think earlier this year, or earlier in April. So they're doing things to build out more of just this conglomerate type business like Tether. Tether is doing that 21 company that's going to be buying Bitcoin, running the Saylor strategy. So Tether's moving beyond just like having stable coins. So whether it's a small NFT project, I would be concerned. The founders are probably rugging you and probably taking that money for themselves. But if it's someone bigger, I think they are looking for ways to pivot and offer different like services.
That's a great perspective. Coming up on the end of our hour, there's a couple headlines I want to call out. First, IPO market seemingly heating back up. So Hinge Health, they treat acute musculoskeletal injuries, but they're aiming to raise up to $400 million in an IPO, pricing at $28 to $32 per share. As someone brought up earlier, eToro, they hit pause on their IPO. I feel so bad for those guys because that happened a couple years ago too. They're going to be coming back out too, and they're ready to go. So it should be interesting to see what types of companies are coming into the public market in the crypto world, in AI, and other places. We also had some news in the auto industry. Honda had a big miss in their earnings. Toyota changing the name of their electric vehicle. So I feel like we were talking about this yesterday, Shy. It's a lot of like random grab bag news this week. But it is always good to focus in on one area and the crypto side of things, because we just don't do that typically. So really appreciate you guys coming in today. Let's do a quick final words from everyone. Shy, I want to ask you, looking at your portfolio today, you're saying you're risk on, or you're seeing things go risk on. Are you making any moves or decisions today, or what are you watching specifically?
Well, I had a 12% cash position. I am trying to get that down to 5%. The market's not letting me get in right now. Things are running quick, and it's justified. A lot of the earning, like this deal came after the heart of earnings season, and a lot of the earnings season guidances were inputting higher input costs, lower demand due to all this tariff war. Now that we have somewhat of a conclusion or pushback for 90 days, and the adjustment was way greater than what a lot of people anticipate, like 30%, reducing to 30%, like a lot of people were underwriting 50 to 75%, for example. Like that's a drastic difference. And it shows that both sides are actually a lot closer aligned in what they want than what the public eye was creating this narrative about. So like that is a bullish thing. And now that we're finally clearing the 200-day moving average with velocity, conviction, it feels like as we're entering the summer months, especially this cool CPI print, it's going to be trend setting. And what is the trend right now? It's up to the right. We're in a V shape right now. So I think there's a lot of cash on the sidelines. There's a lot of cash and gold. That's going to have to be reallocated towards the market, because guess what? Retail bought heavy on the dip. I don't know if we should call them dumb money anymore, because the smart money consistently is like shooting blanks right now in the past like 2 years on what to invest in, what to buy, and when to buy it. They're trying to outsmart the market when clearly dumb money, or the retail, they've been having the edge recently on when to allocate the capital, like when to buy. And just like April 3rd, April 5th or something. Yeah, it was April 5th, I think. That was the largest outflow from institutions in the market. When was the bottom? April 7th. They got out in the bottom. Like they are the Kramers now of investing. So I think that because like the V-shaped recovery we're seeing right now, we're breaking through the 200-day moving average. Like I do think since they were so off sides, there's going to be an they're going to overshoot on this recovery, and that's going to cause a very much like an overbought environment potentially in the summer months that might be a little like squeamish coming Q3. But either way, in May, it's definitely a good sign in the summer months. I think it's just up to the right. So I'm trying to get that cash position down to 5%. Market's just catching a bid. There's no reason it should buck this trend unless, I don't know, Trump just says Z's a douche. He lied to me. I can't do this anymore. Like, no more deal. Like, maybe he does something like that, but I just don't see it. So I think it's going to be a trend setting summer months. It's great to see. And now I'm trying to get some lagging names that weren't participating as much this year. There's still names that are down 30 40% even after this bounce. High quality names, matters, but under the hood, they're doing great. So waiting for some pullbacks towards a 21-day EMA level, and then maybe I'll infuse that cash towards there. But I'm being patient, but love to see it. I went that was a long-winded answer to what are you doing, but hopefully it got,
We
there.
appreciate. I love a good Shy rant. You always land the plane. We take some detours. I learn things along the way. So don't apologize for being you, Shy. I'm gonna let's turn to Avi and Jody real quick because I want to ask you guys a couple things. One, what are the things you're kind of like not obsessed with this week, but what are you really watching? And then also, like, for people who haven't seen your guys' Block Fuel, not familiar, where should people follow you? What do you guys? It sounds like you have some cool interviews coming up. Avi, I'll start with you, and then we'll end with Jody.
Yeah. I think this whole Bitcoin treasury narrative, I mean, coming out of strategy world, usually I'm exhausted coming off of these conferences and physically I was, but mentally I was like more invigorated, I'd say, than any other conference I've ever been to. That hasn't happened for like a while. Right. And it was a different feeling. I think like previous conferences I've gone to where it's more of like a Web3 type of a crowd. I'd say it's like price goes up. We don't know why, this is amazing. Let's go celebrate, pop bottles, but we have no idea why. It feels like there's been a floor and like a why underneath of like where we're really going with this. And I think this whole Bitcoin as collateral, seeing all these other companies start to pop up and all the institutions, like you look at the top earners, I suggest everyone to watch YouTubes of Michael Saylor. You'll end up becoming a believer. The way he like simplifies things, he uses this Manhattan analogy of like the price just keeps going up because there's a finite amount of space here. Similarly with Bitcoin, it'll be really exciting to see. I think over the next, 6 months, a year, you'll see. I think Saylor thinks like 1,000. Is that correct, Jody? New companies by I think it's in the next year or so. So you'll see a lot of that. I agree with Shy and what I said earlier about the 100th company that does that allure is kind of gone. But we'll watch over the next couple months if any big companies make a splash. Then I think it's off to the races. It's a FOMO gold rush that happens.
Yeah, Jody, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say like with liquidity coming back in the market, I think if people are going to be looking towards the summer months, the normal like sell in May and go away is not the narrative this year. It's going to be a little bit different. One thing that we've talked about plenty on our show on Thursdays, and we can continue to talk about, is comparisons of these like covered call strategies that have been super popular. Misty, IMST, Grayscale has their own like covered call product. Those people aren't going to do as well during a bull run, during a really like run up. So it'll be interesting to see how people are positioning into, MSTY, MSTX, if you want like a levered product on an already levered, MSTR product. But all of these things that I think the options markets are super interesting, how people are positioning themselves. Are they buying, August 1080s for strategy, something, very bullish. But we have a lot of really good guests that are really smart, like much smarter with options than we are, that we want to bring on and teach and educate, everyone to do. Obviously trade responsibly, as well as we're going to see how the overall market's doing with some of these dino coins. Are they coming back? Like what actually has use case and utility? Is it worth investing in some of these, new Bitcoin treasury companies? So all of that we'll be doing on Thursday. And yeah, Katie, Shy, thank you for letting us join you.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. It was really awesome to, again, as I said, focus on the crypto world. We'll be back tomorrow, Shy and I, and maybe some special guests. I don't know yet. We'll see. 9 a.m. Eastern every Monday through Thursday right here on Daily Rip Live. Guys, hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.